Mr. Average by Nia Livesey. Mr. Average was very average. He lived in an average house, in an average neighborhood, in an average part of nonsense land. Mr. Average had average friends and liked to discuss average topics like the weather with them. One day, Mr. Average decided that he needed a new car, an average car. Nothing fancy, but nothing dreary either. First, Mr. Average went to his local Mercedes-Benz dealership, but found that the cars were too fancy for his taste and his needs. Then Mr. Average went to his local Suzuki dealership, only to find out Suzuki no longer sold cars in nonsense land due to poor sales. But then Mr. Average set his eyes on the most average car he'd ever spotted. The Honda CR-V. It's as average as crossovers come. Not too flashy, not too boring, just the right amount of average for Mr. Average. Mr. Average was thrilled with his new average car that he drove all the way from Nonsense Land to Happy Land and up to Mr. Land. Mr. Average was as happy with his average CR-V as an average person could be. "No need to exceed expectations," said Mr. Average, "when just being okay is good enough for me." The end.
Average. That is really the takeaway word I have during my time with this vehicle. Our spotlight is on this 2019 Honda CR-V Touring. It is fully loaded for our market, but when you look at the competition, there's a lot more going on outside of this vehicle. Honda seems to have set their goals on just making an average vehicle. They don't want to go above and beyond. They don't want to set the industry standard. They're quite content straight down the middle. So how does this $38,340 vehicle compare to, say, the rest of the competition, especially the ones that we featured? And what's new for 2020? Since we're featuring the 2019 the same week they're announcing it, we're going to be going over absolutely everything you need to know about the 2019 CR-V. Let's address the elephant in the room. This is a 2019 CR-V, and Honda just announced the 2020. Now, depending on when you're watching this, it's at least a week and a half after that announcement from Honda came out, because we're filming this actually the day after, but you're watching it in Movie Magic World, where we edit it and schedule it based on our publish date. So 2020 has been announced, which means the interest in this car, it's gone down substantially, assuming there were people interested in watching this video in the first place. So if you're watching it, thank you very much. Let's go over what's different with the 2020, because it's a small facelift. I mean, this generation CR-V has only been out for a couple of years now, but it is a mild facelift, but it is adding some important stuff. The big news is they're adding a hybrid drivetrain to the CR-V, which is needed, don't get me wrong. It's just hybrid technology now is being phased out in favor of plug-in hybrid technology. So maybe down the road, that option will be added. But for right now, Honda is adding a hybrid engine to this, and they are offering all-wheel drive, a proper all-wheel drive system with their hybrid CR-V. Unlike some of the competition, which usually adds a front gas motor that only powers the front wheels, and then electric motors in the back that only power the rear wheels, Honda says that their hybrid system will drive all four wheels regardless of the engine or motor being used. But what is different besides that? I mean, some small changes on the outside. You do finally get LED fog lights at the bottom. The rear taillights are changed a little bit. They're smoked out just to give it a little different look. You also have some changes to the inside, including Qi wireless charging, extra wood trim along the center console, and a revised center console. And you also have a very similar push-button transmission gear selector that we've seen on the Clarity and the Insight. Aside from that, the Touring trim, which we have here, would get 19-inch rims. That's about the only change. Honda says the 2020 hybrid CR-V will be coming later into 2020, but they say the 2020 regular CR-V will be available in dealerships probably within the next month or two at the latest. So cool stuff. Hybrid technology would probably make this a little bit better. We'll talk about that more on our road test, but I just wanted to let you know, because if you are coming to this video, you might want to know what's coming for 2020, considering it was just announced. But with this car, as configured, the 2019 Touring, you get LED headlights with halogen fog lights, automatic high beams, active cruise control, lane keep assist, blind spot detection, but not that blind spot monitor that we've seen on other Honda vehicles, which has a camera on the right side passenger mirror. It's not on this car because you have proper blind spot monitoring. You have a backup camera with rear cross traffic alert, but there's no 360-degree camera available, nor are there front or rear parking sensors. You do have a heated windshield area for the wiper blades. It's a nice thing to have, obviously not today. Keyless entry, which has remote start, a power liftgate, and a panoramic sunroof. So well equipped, not bad. I mean, if you look back maybe a couple years, it looks pretty good. But again, there are a lot of other vehicles on the market. The two that come to mind right away are the Mazda CX-5 and the Kia Sportage, which add more to it. More engine power, more features, a little bit more premium interior. But the Honda still has that legendary reliability despite the fact that they have had problems with this 1.5-liter Earth Dreams engine. This has 190 horsepower, 179 pound-feet of torque with a CVT and all-wheel drive. So the engine feels a little sluggish with the CVT. Again, we'll talk about that on our road test, but this is the only engine available here in Canada. All of them come with a 1.5-liter engine. It's just the way the world's going. The interior has leather seats, a driver power with memory option, as well as passenger power. There's no memory option for that. Front and rear outboard heated seats, dual zone automatic climate control, Honda's 7-inch infotainment system, though I do find that the bezel is massive on it. You do have a physical volume button though, that is a nice change over the clarity, but there is a huge bezel on that, and we're not a huge fan of the infotainment system, but it does have SiriusXM, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and navigation. They don't use a premium audio system on this. A lot of manufacturers have Harman Kardon or Bose at this price point. Honda doesn't have either of that. It's just their own little in-house system. You have a digital gauge cluster, which has similar information that we saw on the inside. You also have HomeLink, a large center console with configurable storage, and LED interior lighting. So it's well equipped, as I mentioned, not bad for the price, but not great either. Again, it really feels like Honda has set their sights for middle of the road. Honda doesn't really want to offend anybody with this car. It is very conservative looking, and that's not a problem. Again, we have to kind of rethink how we look at a car like this. Not necessarily these super performance-oriented enthusiasts, but rather average consumers. But let's take the 2019 Honda CR-V on the road, talk about the 1.5-liter engine, the CVT, its all-wheel drive system, and how this vehicle handles and drives on the road so that if you're in the market for a Honda CR-V, you'll be better informed. Now, I know I mentioned this while we were on the outside doing the walk around, but it's unfortunate that I've had this car the same week and the day after Honda announced the 2020 CR-V. I know there's not a lot of changes to it. The exterior looks pretty much the same, and for the most part here in Canada, we should be getting about the same kit. But it's the drivetrain. It's the powertrain that really is the difference with this. A hybrid makes more sense. But the thing is, I've been thinking about it for about a day now since this announcement came out. Yeah, a hybrid's great. There's nothing wrong with it. Every car really should be a hybrid unless it's a performance car, because why would you not want the benefit of having that electrification when you need it? But for me, a plug-in hybrid makes the most sense. And I know we've discussed this twice now since we've done the Honda Clarity 2 separate times. We even brought it up again when we did the Honda Insight, where I said that the car on its own just didn't make any sense, but a plug-in would have been a better option. I'm going to say the same because that's what I know. I know my situation best, and in my situation, plugging a car in just makes way more sense, especially for stuff like this. Man, I'm just wasting gas driving around filming this. I'm wasting gas going to pick up my daughter from school. An electric, even with a smaller range, 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers, would be great. So I'm not expecting a Clarity level CR-V. I just think for them to finally come out with a hybrid CR-V this late in the game just doesn't make sense. But anyway, let's talk about this 2019 and how it drives and performs on the road. I do keep it in econ mode, and it is a little slow. You can turn that off, and you can even put the transmission into sport mode to make it feel a little livelier. But unlike something like the Mazda CX-5 that we actually owned, which has technically less power than this, it used a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. This is a 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. I just felt the Mazda didn't feel as sluggish. This one a little bit more so, especially if you're trying to get up to speed on the highway. I know it's an econ mode, I get it, but still, I mean, it just doesn't have a lot of grunt behind it. And again, that's what you're going to expect. I think probably the reason why it feels that way is the CVT. Let's be honest, nobody likes CVTs. The only one that we've driven so far that we actually liked was in the Kia Forte. Every other one just feels really slow, doggish, doesn't want to go anywhere, and gives you a pretty poor driving experience. The benefit, though, is you do have fuel economy, and that's one of the major benefits of having the CVT is better fuel economy, and we have done pretty well with this so far. We'll talk about the fuel numbers when we wrap up this episode, going over the likes and dislikes and all that, but they have been pretty good for the size of the vehicle and the segment. But let's talk about some of the strengths of the CR-V. First of all, I like the seats. They're comfortable. I sit into them well. I have no complaints about that. Interior space is also good. It's on the bigger side when it comes to the compact crossover segment. So you've got a good amount of space up front. Passengers in the back have decent legroom, good headroom as well. And the trunk size is good as well. I mean, think back to the 2002 Honda CR-V my parents had, and now the 2012 CR-V that my parents have. It's not bad in terms of space. They've certainly improved on it. And I'd say that this is probably one of the best looking CR-Vs they've come out with. More so than the previous generation, it does have a good look to it. So interior space is decent. Technology, I mean, it works. You have navigation. It's something that you didn't always get on these cars, so it is a nice to have thing. But really, I mean, it's not anything exciting. It doesn't work as well as some of the other systems in the segment. And you only have heated seats with a backup camera. Tech is light. Like I said, if you're not looking for the top end stuff, the CR-V might be for you. But if you're looking for a little bit more, you want more power, you want more features, you want more tech, you want an interior that just feels a little bit more inspired, you're gonna have to go with something else. But as we boot around town here, it's smooth enough on the road, it's quiet enough on the road. Like I said, very average. It doesn't really stand out. If I wanted to recommend a safe choice for people, and again, it's not safe from a safety perspective, but just safe as in it's a safe bet, the CR-V is still high on the list. But that's the thing, I mean, it doesn't do anything exceptionally well. We usually see that from some of the smaller manufacturers, the ones that really need to carve out space in the marketplace to make a name for themselves. Mazda has been fantastic over the last little while. Hyundai and Kia as well. They've been making some fantastic vehicles because they want people to buy them. They want people to notice what they're doing. But with Honda, it just seems like they've become complacent. They make great cars, but they don't make the greatest cars. They really have set their standards to make this car good, but not great. They haven't taken it to the next level. And especially after seeing the 2020, there's no real major changes with it. The vehicle's been out now for a few years, so we don't really expect a huge change, but man, I mean, do something a little different. And that's why I say a car like this, it is average. It blends in. And to be fair, the people who are buying this car, they don't care about that. They want to blend in. They don't need to stand out. They don't necessarily need to have the best of the best. They want something familiar. And that's what Honda offers, is that familiarity that you don't often get anymore from auto manufacturers because designs change so radically. Honda is still going pretty conservative when it comes to this car. It's really not an offensive car to anybody. It really does sit in the middle of what people want out of a vehicle, which is why it's so average, and why for us, there's nothing really wrong with it, but there's nothing really great about it either.
Fuel economy should be top of mind for buyers of the 2019 Honda CR-V. We averaged 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers or 31.7 US miles per gallon on our 100 kilometer test loop and 8.6 liters per 100 kilometers or 27.4 mpg during our week with this compact crossover. By comparison, the 2019 Subaru Forester did 7.4 liters per 100 kilometers on our test loop, and the 2019 Kia Sportage did 8.4 liters per 100 kilometers on our test loop. So overall, the CR-V is pretty efficient, and we imagine the hybrid will be even more so in 2020. Let's go over our likes and dislikes. The exterior design of the CR-V is a plus in our books. Now, it's not overly aggressive by any stretch of the imagination, but it is conservative enough to attract most buyers. The seats are also very comfortable, and we found the overall interior passenger and cargo space to be excellent. Again, most of what the CR-V has going for it is its desire to be accommodating to most buyers, rather than getting funky with over-the-top features or design. The dislikes are pretty limited as well. The child window lockout is annoying on Honda's products. Not only does it disable the front passenger from using their window, but the driver is also locked out of the other three windows while the switch is enabled. The LED lights are also a miss for us. They don't offer adaptive functionality, and we found there's a serious dead zone immediately in front of the car, which is normally solved with a good set of LED fog lights. Now, we know that those are coming for 2020, but even the halogen fog lights didn't seem to be positioned in an effective angle. And those are really the only two major complaints that we have. Sure, the CVT and engine feel slow, and the lack of premium features like a HUD or ventilated seats can be found on a lot of other vehicles in this segment, but we once again need to remember that the target demographic for the CR-V likely doesn't care about that sort of thing. fuel efficiency, all-wheel drive performance, and reliability are top of mind for buyers considering this Honda. And while there's been a lot of concern related to its 1.5-liter Earth Dreams 4-cylinder engine, it is important to note that third-party websites like HondaProblems.com say that Honda Canada's response to the oil dilution problem was rapid and effective, and it seems that the problem is solved for the 2019 model year. The CR-V isn't bad by any means, but it also isn't a great vehicle either. Honda played it really safe with this 5th generation compact crossover, making sure they don't stray too far from their safety zone when it comes to design, performance, or feature availability. This isn't the crossover for us, but we suspect Honda won't have any problem selling the 2019 even with the announcement of the hybrid.